Well, it seems Labor MPs across Australia are getting nervous as support for the Voice and for the PM drops to its lowest levels since the election. Graham Perrott, the federal member for Moreton, says he's yielded more of a no than a yes response from voters. He says the Yes campaign has a lot of explaining and groundwork to do, and he'll join me on the show tomorrow night, so tune in for that. The Financial Review, meanwhile, has revealed that only 10% of Australians think the Voice to Parliament is the issue they want the government to focus on. Let's bring in now my terrific Tuesday panel, Sky News hosts Paul Murray and Liz Storer.
Howdy.
Great to see you both. Paul, look, when there's reports in the paper that Labor MPs are getting the jitters about the Voice, something's going wrong here.
Well, surprise, surprise, the real world is not the set of insiders. The real world is not the corridors of Canberra. Surprise, surprise, the real world has had to put up with the best part of, a dozen interest rate rises. Yeah. Everything has got worse. As I say every night, their central promise at an election, their core, not non-core promise was cost of living will be dealt with. It's not. They're tinkering, they're fiddling around the edges. There are things governments can control and not control, but they set an expectation. They're failing their own expectation. And as for the Voice, they can try as much as they want to be clever with the language. And you will have noticed that we've gone from the overt conversation about the Voice to now, well, we fully support the recognition of Indigenous people, as if that's the only thing in it.
Yes.
But also at the heart, the reason people won't buy this is because at a time when trust in government, trust in institutions always goes down, they are saying, give us a blank cheque for a new thing in the Constitution, which will work out the details after the campaign. Normal people see that for what it is, and they don't want it.
Yeah, they want to know, and when people say the detail, they want to know exactly which public policy areas this will apply to. They want to know who's going to sit on the body. Is it going to be, one of those
How much? How long? Who? How are they picked?
And picked by who? That's a very important one.
But Liz, clearly the Prime Minister is hurting, his popularity is falling because he's not focusing on this list of issues that people are telling the Financial Review they care about: cost of living, hospitals, healthcare, housing, and instead, the government seems to want to talk about, or at least the conversation, especially at the ABC, is about the Voice.
Yeah, and Albo's staked everything on this. Goodness knows what will happen to him if it doesn't get up. But that same poll by JW Research, that 75% of the people they polled, they want attention paid on cost of living. Naturally, it's very hard to get people who are just trying to pay a mortgage that just 6 months ago cost thousands less per month to care about your legacy, change the Constitution, and especially when you've still not given us a single explanation how this will have a material impact on the lives of Indigenous Australians. People want answers, they're not getting it. Obviously, it's too soon to count our chickens. The Yes campaign is just getting revved up. Officially, although I would say they've already overplayed their hand, and that's part of what we're seeing play out in these polls with the failing popularity. People are sick of being preached at. They're sick of being told why this is so important at a time when, for them personally, they've got 10 other things that are far more important.
I mean, that's the issue, that this is happening in the middle of a deep cost of living crisis. That's part of the problem. And now I want to turn to some comments that Senator Rand Paul made to me, not last night. Last night I interviewed him and broadcast that interview about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But, you can't have a leading Republican senator, you can't sit down with a leading Republican senator and not ask him what he thinks is going to happen with Donald Trump. So I did, and here's what he had to say.
They're charging him with like 90 years in prison. Even if you look at our sentencing guidelines for someone who's never committed a crime, and they put through all the different point system, he's facing between 17 and a half years and 22 and a half years in prison. That is outrageous, and nobody in the world thinks that's fair. Nobody in our country thinks that's fair, and nobody believes that Biden will be held to the same standard.
But do you think he would still be the Republican nominee for president, or do you think this would impact on
Well, we don't have any limitations. In fact, another person who was prosecuted for the Espionage Act was Eugene Debs, the most famous socialist candidate in our country. And while I despise socialism, I'm all for the freedom to allow socialists to run, even back then. And I think it was a mistake to put him in jail. He ran from jail in 1916 against Woodrow Wilson. And I think he got over 1 million votes from jail. So you can run from jail. It's not the ideal location for campaigning, but you can run from jail. Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Well, 1 million votes from jail wouldn't quite cut it for Trump. He needs about 82 million or something, Paul Murray. But do you think it could actually come to this, Trump running from prison?
The process, which begins middle of August, is when the trial will take place. That's the first date. But that will be delayed, that will be delayed, that will be delayed. And then obviously there's plenty of opportunity for this, even between, at the end of it, sentencing, we're starting to get towards the back half of 2024. I think the polls are telling us two very clear things, which is Americans desperately want to dump Biden, right? He's got right track, wrong track is 74%. Right. They desperately want to dump. But more people hate Trump than like Trump. So exactly the same scenario as 20, where the best thing going for Biden was Trump, will be the same again in 24. Again, I say it every week, until I see some data from the states that he won in 16 coming back to him in 24, sure, he's going to ramp it home for the Republican nomination. DeSantis has not fired. DeSantis has made a series of really bad choices. The expectation that he'd just be the not Trump guy and that would get him over the line. Well, the reality is that if you're a Trumper this deep into the world of Trump, you don't care anymore. You're with him all the way to the end, all the way to jail and beyond, and those numbers aren't moving. So he'll be the nominee, but based off all the data I see, he will lose.
What do you
Sadly.
think, Liz?
Well, I think this whole thing is designed to keep him out of the White House, and so they will exacerbate the proceedings in order to see that happen if they can. But as you've said, and as the congressman just said, even if he's behind bars, he can still run. So it's bizarre. But
and my favourite detail, of course, is that Secret Service have to guard him in jail. 24/7 protection includes going into jail.
And he'd be saying, "No, let me just use your phone. Let me just
correct." But also
tweet
depending
something
on where
Truth Social.
But also the oddity of what state, if he ends up that Florida would be it, not New Jersey, not New York. Well, I'm pretty sure that felons can't vote in Florida. So the bizarre thing that you can't vote from jail, but you can run from jail. God love America.
What a mess! What a mess! They need
Great cheese,
two new
Only
candidates on both sides.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Now, I also want to ask you about woke education. We're looking at a series of drag time, story time events that have been held across the country. There's one school, Hartford College in Sydney South East, that's a startup school employed by parents, 22 students enrolled so far. So not a roaring success just yet. But this is part of the move of parents trying to push back against just how woke schools are getting in the curriculum, when it comes to gender transition, when it comes to all these sort of issues. Paul, can you understand why some parents would be frustrated enough to set up a new school?
If I was a billionaire, this is exactly what I'd be doing. Be trying to start a whole sort of new network of independent schools, independent universities, because there has to be an ability for people who want education, good qualifications to be able to go on and have whatever life you want, but not have it poisoned by the garbage that you don't want your kids to learn. I'm not talking about a bunch of people that want to sit around sort of, chanting every 10 minutes to their particular deity.
Yeah.
Talking about normal people who want the education for their children that they had. And I say, if you've got the money to start this stuff up, do it, because 22 will become 200, become 2,000 pretty quickly.
Well, Elon Musk, you talk about a billionaire. I mean, Elon Musk started his own school. I don't know where that's up to now, but he definitely did. I mean, Liz, I think there are a lot of normal parents. It hasn't become a massive issue yet in Australia like it has in the US, where it actually has affected outcomes of elections. And that's because it's not so extreme here yet. But we are starting to see the seeds of schools, just informing parents if they have even a young child who has changed genders. And this is going to gradually build.
100%. The creep of the state into the schooling system, taking over that parental role more and more, parental rights being crushed. I absolutely love what this guy, he himself is a father of 6, has started this school. I have no doubt this is going to absolutely take off, because the need for it is growing more and more as more and more parents become aware of what's actually happening. They're more than happy to pass up on free state schooling to send their kids to a place like this. And I also loved reading, they're bringing back things like French, Latin, philosophy, all these lost subjects that were once such a part of a normal curriculum and a syllabus. And we had really educated people back there. Now now we've got kids coming out of year 12 still don't know how to read and write properly.
Well, and dare I say, teachers get paid $200,000. Like the principal should be paid $500,000. Like, set up a system that you want to succeed, and it will do. Because obviously, as soon as it's built around, some sort of philosophy that lefties can turn around and say, oh, that's just the creepy school at the end. No, in the same way that, leftier schools like Steiner schools are able to exist and do it their way, well, what about at the other end of things? So parents, rally together, do it, make your own uniform and come up with your own motto, which is hopefully better than the primary school I went to, which was Utile Dulci, pleasure through usefulness.
Oh, well, there you go. You know a bit of Latin. I assume that's
Latin. What a dream. Pleasure through usefulness.
Did it rub off?
Oh, I've been nothing
You're
but
living
useful.
that creed, Paul.
I get all my pleasure from usefulness.
All right, we're out of time. Paul Murray, we'll see you 9 o'clock tonight. Can't wait. Liz Store at 10 p.m. Thank you so much, guys.